Hello, hi everyone. Excited to be back here on YouTube again after a long time. Today I've got Karim here on the call with me. We'll be talking about Zag.js, Corex UI. You probably don't know what that is, but Karim will share some details about what it means. Right, so I'd love to sort of just like share a bit of like what you do, Karim, and why did you build Corex UI? I'm very curious about that.
Hi, Sage. It's a pleasure to be with you. We're gonna go through a little bit of how we work, how I work with Zag.js, how I come up with the Corex UI project, and the history of it. Let's say so. It all started on a personal project on Elixir, which is a
Okay.
totally different language, and I was looking for a UI, a user interface that could be integrated with Elixir, especially Phoenix,
Okay.
for some who know about it.
Yeah.
But it was very difficult to find a UI that could be customized, that could be very. I was looking for a client side UI. That was very important for me to have instant feedback. So, for example, when we open a dialogue or we open an accordion, we want instant effect. Doesn't matter if it's server side rendering. We want the accordion to open instantly. We cannot wait on a low connection. That doesn't make sense. And at that time, there was no way on Elixir to find that. So I dig up a little bit, and obviously most of the UI library on React currently, or most of the integration, the framework. And unfortunately, it's not possible to integrate it with Phoenix and Elixir. It's very heavy, very difficult. So that option was not possible, and that's where I come up with Zag.js. I dig up a little bit, and obviously on your website we can see the React integration, all the other framework also. But if we dig up a little bit more on the example folder, we can find a vanilla TypeScript example. And that's, let's say, what started the whole Corex UI project, is that little folder doesn't look like a lot, but it's actually quite impressive what we can do with it. And it's a way to integrate it really on client side. So Corex UI is a UI library that currently works only on static websites. So
Okay.
there is no server, but there is communication. So the API can be called, can be receiving information, and can send back information. This is very important. Why? Because that's what is needed to integrate with Elixir. There is a
I see.
way to have a JavaScript, what they call interpolation. Sorry for my
Yeah.
accent. That we are able to send data or information to the server in both ways, from the client to the server and from the server to the client. But again, some user interface need only the client. There is no need to go through the server, and that's what Zag.js can allow to do. It's loaded on the client, it stays on the client. The API can be contacted anytime, and that's the beauty of it. That's what we can do. So that's how it all started with
Yeah,
your
that's great.
vanilla TypeScript example.
Yeah, that's great. One very common thing, one very common issue with just like using Zag.js in the vanilla way, is how do you support server-side rendering? Like, how do you make sure that like you don't see like a junk of UI? Like on the server, it's actually pre-rendered correctly. So how do you manage to work around this since it's just for static websites?
This is also one of the biggest core. You can see on the main documentation there is a main package, a static. That's where all the UI lives. But I also created some pre-rendering, or what we call a rendering, on the static website. So let me explain. So it's a script that runs right after you build. So you build your website as usual, your static website. You have a distribution folder or output folder, doesn't matter. What we do,
Yeah.
we just run Zag.js on top of that folder. So what we do, we pre-render the components. So let me give an example. If we say an accordion has the default open as the first option or the first and second option, we know already in advance that those two options will be open. So we can already pre-render it. Obviously, there is things we cannot. If you need to go through local storage, this you need the client to be up on the user side, let's say. So that's not possible. But on many other things, it's predictable. We know already what we can be. So this is why there is no layout shift, absolutely zero. We can run all the components through Lighthouse. We can see there is no shift at all. So that was a big issue. Many of the other integration try to do it through CSS. By hiding and everything, but I don't believe that's the right way, because what do I know? What do I need to know if I need to hide a part of a component or not? That depends on the let's say the initial props of the components, and that cannot be known in advance in CSS. So we do not touch, and this is why it's important to separate the two. The design is totally separated from the UI. So it's two different packages. There is no mention of neither variant, CSS, or nothing in the UI. This is very important, the separation. So this is why there is no layout sheet, because we pre-render basically the components on the distribution folder, as simple as that. And this is integrated with Vite, with Astro, and also as a CLI, if you want to just use it on your own build.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes sense. Yeah, so one of the things I like to do for the audience watching is to give them a bit of a technical deep dive into like how this works. So if you could maybe start with just showing us what Corex UI looks like, and then take us into like how did you build it, and I mean, this SSR thing you talk about where you pre-render the page, if you can just give us a quick overview, nothing too deep, but at least just on a surface level, just show us like how it works. I'll be curious to learn from that.
Yeah, I can show you a little bit. Here we are. It should be fine. You can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, so let's start. So this is the official documentation, and this is the GitHub. So as I said, we'd like to keep the project open source. So here we can see on the whole project is a mono repo. So to make it simple, and we can see the packages. As I said before, is separated. So under static, we have our components that lives here. We can go through here, and we have the list of all our components. And it's very important to see that it's totally separated from the design, which is the whole CSS. It has the list of the components also, but is a totally separated package. The same way that Zag.js thinks about it. So in Zag.js, we can see the example in StackBlitz, and we see that the CSS is actually you have a shared folder also in GitHub that's very helpful actually to start with it. So as I explained before, if we can go back to the README, we have multiple packages. So we start with the vanilla.js components. We have the design. Design, I will go quickly about it because it's not really related to Zag, but it used design token and Tailwind, the latest Tailwind version, to be able to reduce the size of the CSS. And next to it, the pre-rendering or the post-build rendering, we were talking about it, is those three packages, the CLI, Vite, and Astro. Vite and Astro is really helpful to bypass, but we could use the CLI also on Vite and Astro. It just makes it helpful to have a plugin. And actually, I think the best to do is to really see it in action, just to see the initial, let's say, installation. I think that could be a good thing. And we can see just before a little bit more in detail. We can start with one of the simple example, accordion, where we can see is not only a simple example where we need to pass certain value to certain parts of the component. So we can see how it's done in vanilla JS a bit more in detail. So as always with Zag.js, we start with the anatomy, so the parts, the data parts, the structure of the component.
Yeah.
This is very important to understand. I think before to use any of the components with Zag, it's important to understand the anatomy, and you can see every package start with the anatomy folder, and really advise everybody to start with that. And we can see there is a difference between, for the accordion example, difference between root and the other parts. And I will show you exactly the example in React to understand it. Is we do not pass any value to the API for the root part, but we must pass a value for each item. And in vanilla JS is a little bit different than on server side, because here there is no server at all. We need to understand that this website is hosted on a shared hosting or even free on GitHub page. So we cannot just load some data here and say, oh, I will take the value from this. This is not possible. So what we do is, if we go back to it, is we treat those parts a little bit different. So we take an example of the accordion. The HTML require, on each of the parts, we require to pass a value. And the component in vanilla.js will read that value for each of the item, and we pass it to the machine. That's exactly how it's done. Simply by saying you will look for a certain value on each of item. If you find it, you pass it. But we also pass the disable one, because there is a disable for each of the item that could be disabled, and that's obviously not a string, a boolean. So it will adapt for each of the component the value that we need to pass for each of the parts. So that's one of the difficult, I think, part of the vanilla integration that we don't really see when we use React, because it's part right straight from the server. So we don't feel the difficulty about it. Regarding all the props for the component, the initial props, it's very easy. I think this is the beauty of it. The documentation on Zag.js is beautiful. If you use TypeScript, you have the whole documentation just with your mouse. That's really that was very, very helpful. And I think the communication, that's the other part that is a little bit different from the React integration or server-side integration, is that we use event listeners to be able to either receive or send information to the API, and that actually allow things like this, where we can rotate the image instantly with no delay. This we can see on the console. It sends data on each of the changes. So it's a lot of data, but you can add a lot. I did some stress tests with over 10,000 components on one page, and there is no delay. It's all instant. So the machine, the Zag.js client machine itself is very, very light. That's one of the beauty of it to work on a static site, is that it's very light. There is no need of a server to treat any data there. So that's one of the let's say difference with the server integration. So that's one example of a simple, let's say, components where we need to pass certain values, read them from the DOM, and send it back to the API. So,
nice.
I think,
so how then do you go about the server side, the pre-rendering and all that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, sure. I can show you. I can show you actually an example. So In this one, this is a Vite example, so it's just a static website. In Vite, obviously, we can use dev. I can just launch it here. We can see the difference with the production. So here we can see we have a menu that we use here.
Yeah.
And this in dev, if I refresh the page, we can see that it's not really nice. There is a lot of layout shift. But if we build, and this is using the Vite plugin, but you could do it also with the CLI. And what it does is it goes through. Let me just lift up this. It goes through there's only one page, the index that has been built by Vite, and it renders the components. So here we can see there is 8 components that have been rendered. And if I preview now the results, so it's still now just the distribution folder, we can see that there is no layout shift at all. You can see that the components actually move less than the fonts. We have more issues with the font loading than actually the components. So that's the really beauty of it. It was quite a lot of work on that post-build processing, but I think it's worth it to have the same effect than server-side rendering. So no layout shift. That's very important, I believe. So.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And on this example, I can also show you while we are here the way we integrate a bit more complex components. So I will take this example of menu, where we have submenu, sub-nested menu. So we'll give you an example of that. Because that's where we get to big trouble, let's say. When we need to pass one value on an accordion, that's all fine. But when we start to get nested menu with parents and children, it starts to be very heavy. And here I found a solution where we can ask the user to enter all the data needed. So for each of the parts, we need to ask for a value. That's possible. But for, let's say, for a menu, for a website, it's going to be complicated. So I found a solution where we can pass a JSON file, not a file, but here in a script on top of the page, where we list actually our menu. So the ID, the name, the children, and even the sub-children. So here we have a nested menu inside another nested menu inside another one. And this goes through the JSON. So we just need this little part of HTML, and the whole data is loaded. Obviously, this allows less customization because it's going to be, let's say, pre-rendered elements. But with CSS, we can still do it. Now we can do the manual way and list all the parts one by one. And the beauty of it is you can also use the same file for another components. So for example, in this website, we use the same one for a tree view. So the same JSON file, the same structure can be used for a menu or for a tree view. So in this case, the tree view is more realistic for a sidebar than actually a menu. But this is the
how do you connect
data. I don't connect it. So basically, the idea is to go. Let me just find the data. So if we look at that, data is exactly the same structure for both. And now the only difference is that the menu, the root, let's say level is a little bit different than in a tree view. This tree view we see all, but is not clickable. So it is considered as a trigger. But once again, it just understanding the structure does the same you use on Zag.js. So I didn't want to use another format. We said, okay, let's take the same format. We have the children and the ID name children. We don't need more than that. If you need more customization, then you can do it manually, one by one, with each of the values by hand. But once again, depends on the need. So
nice.
Here we can see a more complex example.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you come back to like why you decided to build this project, you said you wanted to use this in a Phoenix Elixir project. So do you
Correct.
have any example like of like how this is working inside of like Elixir or Phoenix?
Yeah, I can show you. I did some trade project before. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
I have a very quick one with the last example. I can show
Okay.
you. Um, so what it does, let me just launch it. Um, what it does. Okay. So the idea is I would like to search through cities and airports. Now we
Okay.
need to know that the list of airports and cities in the world is very big. It's about 9,000 cities and 14,000 airports, a
Yeah.
lot. So in this case, what we do, we say, okay, let Phoenix and Elixir deal with the API and the data, and we
Okay.
want to be able to render. So this use the combo box from Zag.js.
Yeah.
Actually, is the integration, the vanilla JS integration, and
Yeah.
this allow to have an instant search. So when we go, for example, in London, we have them here, and we can see that they are grouped also as a group. So in the
Yeah.
combo box, we can group each of the item as a group, and it's possible to render them as that. So here visually it doesn't look like, but it's actually a group. And the beauty of it is that it's the search feels instant on everything. And here we're talking about 20,000, 30,000 results. And also the page on the loading, there is no waiting. You can search straight away. And the way it's done is we do not give to the component the whole list. It's not possible on the client to send 40,000 list
Yeah.
of items and say, okay, component search on this
Yeah.
list. So what we do is we fetch. There's a way to do it. You normally do it with ASIC link on React. But on Vanilla.js, we can fetch the API. So what it does is actually fetching the API on each request.
On each
This is
user.
very quick because it's from the client to the server, but is very quick for very short time, and
Yes.
that allows to just get the data needed. So if we go here, we have a separation between the backend, so all the Elixir file, who will deal with the API, with the search, and we have a total separation of the JS that will deal with the front end. So as you see, the integration needed for Elixir is really not much. This is it. So it's literally just loading the vanilla accordion from Corex and initialize the accordion unmounted. That's all. That's
I see.
only thing needed to integrate. And this is why we have instant loading and a separation between client and server. But once again, we can communicate between the two. So Phoenix has a way to receive event from the client, and obviously Zag.js has a way to send and receive from the client too. So that's
Yeah,
how
that
it's
makes
done.
sense.
So yeah.
Cool. So like for the combo box, can you show me in Elixir like how you how you communicate between like when it changes, when you make the API call, like that communication pipeline?
Sure. See, so we go. Okay. Get a bit. So once again is Elixir syntax and language, but more or less we get the idea. So what we do is we load the accordion as usual,
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, actually no, this is wrong. Sorry, I'm here. So here what we do is we see the roots. So we load the accordion as we would do it in Vanilla.js. Nothing different. The only difference is we pass a fetch API URL. and we say on each stroke you will fetch from this API. And
Oh, I
if I
see.
go to my components over here, place search. So here, this is a combo box from the Vanilla.js integration. This is a little
Yeah.
bit modified. You must modify it. You cannot just with data attribute do magic. You must. So what we do is here we create our async list, and we say, okay, you have all the option, all the item. You know where you want to fetch from, which
Yeah.
API, and here what we do is we try to get the collection because the combo box needs to receive a collection, and we need to update that collection when we receive the API. So this is
Yes.
a little trick is we push to the collection every time there is some changes
Okay.
to the list. And then we just need to render as simple as that on open change in this case. So when we initialize our combo box machine, we say, okay, on any open change, on user open change, we decide to fetch and render at the same time. So it's important to keep that order. So first we need to update the collection and then render, because in this case the combo box needs to have a collection. If we go a bit down, we see so the rendering is a little bit heavy because there is a group of airports and cities, but that's particular to that case.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how it's done. So it's not much. Let's say here the most of the code is really about the rendering of the groups, the way we want to do it. So, but the fetching is very simple. Is a way to you just need to keep the right order in place. But I was very surprised how fast it is actually. The machine the Zag.js machine can communicate back and forward very easily, and that's really one of the beauty, one of the things I really love about it. So.
Yeah, cool. I think that was a really nice demo to see. I have no clue of what Elixir is. I just know it's out there, but it's cool to see like Zag.js actually work in a framework like that. I haven't written a single line of Elixir or Phoenix. I have no clue, but it's cool to see.
Thank you. I mean, at the end of the day, the separation between server and client doesn't matter what you use on the server, and the client stays the same. So here it's really important to understand that everything is done on the client side, stays on the client side, but it doesn't mean that it cannot communicate with the server. So it can be very fast for the user, but at the same time, on the back, if we need to treat any data, it can be done. Can be done on the server side. So things I like again the experimentation. There is nothing out there like that. I couldn't find anything. There's web components, but again, I think there is too much wrapper around it. This is pure HTML, pure JavaScript. There is nothing else on top of it. So I really like them, especially the unstyled version of Zag.js. That's what I really like. I don't like to have CSS in JS or any mix of the two that doesn't, for me, make sense. So that's why I really appreciate
That
the
makes
work
sense.
you did on Zag.
You already answered like the last question I have for you, because I was gonna ask you if you wanted to just like convince someone else or a different engineer thinking about like what library should I use, like what's your pitch for Zag.js? Like, I mean, would you tell them to use Zag.js and why?
Once again, if you understand the difference between server and client, then you will use Zag.js, because many of the libraries use the server to do things that cannot be done on the server. We cannot open a dialog on a server. That doesn't make sense. If you put a latency of even 0.2, it just doesn't work. So that's why Zag.js really focused on the clients. Yes, there is integration with React, with all the server side, but the core of it can be done truly on the client, and I think Corex UI can show it. Again, there is a little bit of abstraction on top of it, but the core of it, as you can see on the component, it's pure JavaScript, pure machine. We need to understand the machine, but they are very, very fast. I tried over 10,000 components on one page and his instance. Lightspeed House doesn't complain. So it's very, very beautiful. Combo box can be difficult to work with on other library. I've been trying to customize other combo box and it was horrible to work with. Zag.js is amazing. Every data part is separated. We understand how things go together, and that's what they really like. So really should try it out. It can be on React, can be on vanilla, we can be on any other integration. But it would be nice to see other project trying to use that in the
Yeah,
future.
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a perfect pitch. Yeah, cool. So I mean, we're wrapping up now. I think the only question I have is like, I mean, you had on your GitHub, I noticed that you have three different projects, three main projects. You've got Corex UI, you've got Team X JS, you've got Designer X. So like, I mean, I'm very curious about this because I always geek out on these topics. Also, like theming, design system, design token. So why do you come up with these three projects right now?
I'm a very big fan of design token. I've been working on design token for many years, and I believe that's the future of the design, the separation of the components and the design. So, for example, in Corex UI, the package, the design package, is totally separated from the components. It can theoretically be managed by just the designer. There is no need of a developer to go through. So just a quick example, if we would like to add a variant for the buttons, I want alert, but actually I want something else, info, extra, or brand. Then why the developer should be involved? There is absolutely no reason. And with design token, there is a way to do it. So in this case, with just updating the design package by just
Yeah.
adding whatever token you would like to, it will actually update the variant, and not by any JS, nothing, pure CSS, nothing else is involved. So this is why I like the design token. Is just about the source of truth for the design. So what do we say about source of truth is, let's say my background, I would like three different backgrounds that go one on top of the other. Where do I keep that source of truth? Do I keep it in certain format? Do I keep it in CSS? For some people, CSS is the base, but for others, is not. If you work on any native or any mobile platform, then CSS is not your friend. So design
Yeah.
token allow you to have one source of truth and then export it in any other format. So, for example, DesignX, the open source project I also worked on, allow to do that from one token to actually export it in many different formats. And this is the beauty of it. The token can be thousands of it, can be imported on Figma, on Penpot, on other open source projects. They are convertible. So I really like the idea of design also at the same time than the front end. And this is why the token is a little bit in between. So I advise everybody who doesn't know about it to go through a style dictionary. They were very the precursor for the design token. They opened the door to it, and I think they built something amazing. And I advise everybody to spend the time to just understand the principle of design token that would simplify communication between designer and developers in the future.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a perfect way to put it. I think the clean separation between design and UI. I think most of the time people tend to just put them together, like I mean, smush them in so you can just touch the CSS file and call it a day. But it always ends up in a nightmare every time. But if you create that clean separation, just like Karim mentioned, you have that structure that can scale across your project and across your team. So yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Karim.
You're
Awesome,
welcome.
awesome. Yeah, so it's been fun chatting with you. Thanks for your time.
It was
Excited about
amazing
Corex
too.
UI. I mean,
Mm,
yeah, you guys can
thank
check it
you.
out. I mean, it's a very unique project. I haven't seen again, I haven't seen any project use like Zag.js in the way I've used it so far. So excited to, I mean, try it out myself and see how it goes.
Thank you, thank you. It's in a very deep development currently, very early version. I hope in couple of weeks we have the first very stable version, but it's already stable. But like a lot of changes currently. But yeah, keep working on it, and it will still be available in the future. So you can check
Awesome.
it out.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Until next time. See you all.
Bye. See you again.